All right, Joni, I brought in 2 little kittens that arrived here at the shelter, and as you can see, I'm sure everybody at home is going, "Aw, they're so cute." But these little kittens are only about 4 weeks old, and they came in without their mama. And to me, I always refer to these as, these aren't kittens. These are baby kittens.
Right.
These are babies who still should be with their mother. And unfortunately, one of the things that we see during the spring and summertime is people will bring us these babies, but they aren't willing to bring us the mom, or they can't catch the mom. And it is very difficult for us to sustain these little guys. They're more susceptible to disease. They still should be in the process of being weaned from their mom. They also learn from mom and their litter mates how to play, how to inhibit their bite, how to use their litter box, how to clean and wash themselves. And as wonderful as foster homes are, we cannot imitate a mother cat.
Right, absolutely.
And so the best thing for these kittens is to remain with their mom. And so I just want people to know that when you are bringing kittens like this, they have a much greater chance for survival and to become a better household pet if they're allowed that time with their mom. Down the road, this can, I know many people say, well, I took in a stray kitten and I fostered it and it's just fine, but later on they end up having either aggression issues or litter box issues or some
or
type of
social issues.
Right. They don't have the social structure that they would have if they would have had the benefit of being with mom and with their litter mates.
Right. And in cases like this, what our ultimate goal is obviously to find a nursing female to see if we can help these guys along.
And another thing that people will do is, oh, well, I want to come to the shelter, or I want to get a kitten as young as I possibly can. And really the best time to get a kitten is when they're between 8 and 12 weeks of age. Before that time, they are still learning from their litter mates, and oftentimes people will call the shelter, and when I do it, I'm doing a cat consultation, people will say, well, I got my kitten at 4 weeks old, or I got my kitten at 6 weeks old. That's a very awkward time for these kittens to be away from their mom and their litter mates. And you don't have as well-rounded a kitten in those instances. So it really is best that they, and I don't, sometimes people will say, well, I want them to bond to me. And oftentimes it's not bonding that's taking place, it's imprinting. The cat starts to look at you as another cat and may use biting or aggression as a way of getting their way like they would with another cat because they haven't had that socialization with their litter mates and learned how to inhibit their bite. So as cute as they are, it's best to wait until they're a little bit older.
And the reason we're doing this, the reason we're showing it, because Cheryl's right, everybody's doing that aw thing, they're so cute. And they truly, truly are, but the truth of the matter is this is far too young to be on their own. So if you have, and many people do, have kittens at home and they want to bring them to a shelter, or they want to even, give them away free to a good home, or whatever the case might be, please wait. Please wait, because they're still learning. They're still in that learning stage, and it's important that, again, that they're not just weaned, and but they're also being taught by their mom.
Well, and I think too, sometimes people will say, well, the kittens are weaned because they're eating, food on their own. It's really the mom cat's decision.
Right.
She decides when her kittens are old enough and ready to be on their own, rather than us interfering and saying, oh, well, I think they're old enough, they can go now.
I'll take them. So, same thing applies to puppies. However, we don't see that issue. We don't see the volume of puppies like we see the kittens.
Like we see the kittens.
And that kind of gets into that value that we talk about, Cheryl, the value of a cat, and how people think differently about cats than they do dogs. And so let's have that discussion. We'll put the kitties back and we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
One of the things, Joni, that I hear a lot from people is that they just don't understand why their cat does what their cat does, or You know, why aren't they, you know, they don't come when they call, or they're hard to train. And I think there's still that myth out there that cats are like dogs. And I think one of the things that we see here at the shelter is people seem, because of our end of the business, they seem to value dogs more than cats. And why do you think that is?
Well, the reality is, in my personal opinion, is people do value dogs more than cats. The general public does, and I think the reason of that is that dogs are different. Dogs are social animals. They're pack-oriented. Unconditional love. People talk about dogs and unconditional love all the time. Whereas a cat, obviously, because they're somewhat independent in nature and they don't have that same kind of relationship with, you know, a person that they live with, I think, again, people view them differently. And the truth of the matter is, and think about it, Cheryl, there are far more cats than there are dogs.
Right.
So therefore, that old adage about, you know, cats are a dime a dozen, or, you know, look at the papers.
Right.
Free to good home ads everywhere.
Right.
But you don't see free to good home ads with dogs. You see $50, 25.
Well, and something that I've noticed here at the shelter since I've been here is that if your dog is missing, people have a tendency to immediately go out and search for their dog or call in a lost report. But oftentimes, and I've received those calls personally, where people call and say, well, you know, my cat's been missing. Well, for how long? And 7, 8 days, you know, he's usually gone, you know, 4 or 5, but now he's been gone 7 or 8. Where with a dog, people are more apt to look for that right away.
The first 24 hours. I mean, they're on the phone, they're on their answering machine.
Right.
So that's a really good point, Cheryl, because the bottom line is, statistically, you know, only 2% nationally, only 2% of all the people in the United States ever claim their cat, where 40% of the people in the United States claim their dog.
Right.
Now, Oshkosh is a little bit different. We're a little bit higher in the redemption. 11% of our cats are claimed. But still, that's compared to 45% of our dogs.
Right.
So
and I think
that's a big difference.
Yeah. And I think another thing that surprised me is that there is a state law in Wisconsin that requires that all dogs will have a rabies vaccination. But there is not a state law governing rabies vaccinations for cats. Now, in the city of Oshkosh, it is a city ordinance that all companion animals, cats and dogs, need to have a rabies vaccination.
Including ferrets.
But it is not a state law that cats.
Right.
So here again, that also, to me, indicates a perception of value for an animal.
Well, and some of that comes from the fact that, you know, house cats are relatively new, Cheryl. I mean, we don't really, but, you know, dogs as house pets are not that new. And the truth of the matter is that when I spoke to the state veterinarian and asked her why cats are not rabies vaccinated, or that's not required, is basically because we're a farming state. A lot of people still think of cats as being mousers and rodent, you know, keeping the population down as far as rodents and so on and so forth. So again, that perception isn't necessarily, I mean, that perception's been going on for a long, long time.
Right. And it's hard to change some of those things. There's a lot of myths about cats that, you know, cats are independent, they can take care of themselves, and we know that that's not true. And cats outside, there are so many dangers nowadays for animals left outside, especially for cats. I know that we see cats coming in with feline leukemia, some of those diseases. They're exposed to fleas and ticks. I believe that over the summer, we had a kitten that was possibly picked up by a hawk.
Right.
They have other predators out there, and of course, cats being cats, they also, you know, can have an impact on the wildlife in our area.
Anybody who wants to know the impact of the outdoors on cats just needs to work in a shelter environment. You can always tell when a cat's been out for any length of time. They're always thin. They're covered in fleas, and they have ear mites. They have parasites. A lot of times they have abscesses from wounds, other cat fights, being into situations. I mean, you know, hit by cars, injuries. I mean, it runs the gamut. And so as far as people thinking that cats can live outdoors without, you know, any kind of issues or trauma, that's absolutely false. It's not true anymore. Our society has changed. I mean, you know, we're not rural anymore. We're much more